please tell me a little more about your background?
I'm come from China, obviously, so I'm originally Chinese, but I've stayed here for staying in Australia for about 1 year because I start my study in Monash College since part one last year. This is my third trimester. I'm now living in homestay because I can have a better experience of Australian cultural and more experience in Australia. And if I don't know everything, I can just ask my homestay family, so it's pretty good.
That's good. Talking about the culture, could you please give me a definition of culture?
In my own opinion, that cultural is a business card of individual or a group that belongs to the similar or the same cultural background or personal background. That culture, because culture is a very wide definition. It should be included with your religion, with your personalities, with your home country or your secondary cultural value. So it is based on personal experiences and your experience or your education. So it's different from person to person.
Okay, so what do you think of Chinese culture?
Chinese culture is a type of like very indirect, and the most important thing is that we need to respect everyone in China. For example, when you're meeting your teacher or meeting maybe your grandparents, you always need to say hello and in a very respectful way. But however, in Australia, you only need to call somebody like they can just say, "Oh, how are you?" or just start a "Good, mate," and it's really ease, not so formal. It's informal. So Chinese culture is quiet, respect to other ones, and very indirect.
So how you experience culture shock when you come to Australia?
When I first come to Australia, it's like firstly I arrived in September. So it's probably really cold. I don't feel really comfortable because it was really hot in China. But when I arrived here, it's pretty cold. And because when I arrived here, I just know the season is opposite with the northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. So I just need to realize that. And another thing is that people here work or drive on the left while in China they drive or work on the right. So I was really shocked. Oh, okay, I should go to the left or right. For the first couple of weeks, it's really hard to understand what they're doing. But after like probably a couple of weeks, then you will try to understand and try to accommodate why they act like that, and you just become one of them.
Okay, different from China with Australia, like the value or the behavior.
Well, I think the most different thing is that what I just said, Australian people are more open, more direct, and usually if you are Australian or you want to meet an Australian student, they will ask you to go to the pub or go to a disco center and play for the whole night. But in China, that's really impossible because your parents are gonna find you, "Oh, where are you?" and call you on your phone by 100 times. But in Australia, if you are just over 18, your parents just leave you on and you can just move out. Don't need to care about your parents, or sometimes your parents drop you out of their home. And for Australian, they act really independently, and they would like to make friends with like European people or maybe just local people, New Zealand and European people, because they are really hard to communicate with like Asian people, I think, because they may have some difference between their value, like I'm pretty awesome or I'm really open. However, like Chinese and Japanese, they're pretty shy, so that's the problem.
Okay. Have you heard of stereotype?
Oh yes, I've heard about that. It's a type of think something arrogantly on a specific cultural value or on a country. So that's stereotype, but actually it's wrong. I know it's wrong.
Have you stereotyped anyone from another country?
Yes, of course. I just come back from Japan for a couple of months. I have traveled there for 1 month.
Wow, sounds good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And before I go there, I met a group of Japanese exchange students in Monash College. And when they come, I think their English is pretty bad. Because
yeah.
according to lots of people, that Japanese don't learn English, or they learn English really late during their education, like senior high school. But when I met them, their English is pretty good. They're able to communicate and they're able to understand what I'm talking about. So there is some grammar error, but that happens in all international students, so that's not a really big problem. So I have stereotype on them. I think their English is pretty bad, but actually it's pretty good.
Okay. So you're talking about change. Could you please tell me something that make you change your thought about China?
In China, when I come to Australia, there's less information about China, but a very big difference is that when I was living in China, there's lots of positive information, like what is going on good, or the economic has increased for 7%, for example. But when I come to Australia, it's always like there's more negative information about China than positive information. Definitely they have, but compared with positive information, negative is more. So it seems that China is not such a great country in Australian view, but in China, I think my country is the best, and my country is very good, first place in Asia or second or third in the world. But after I come to Australia, there's a lot of things to improve because other people looking in different aspects.
Okay. For the last question, could you please tell me an interesting story or something memorable that you have experienced in Australia?
Well, since I stay in Monash College for 3 trimesters, and I've been a student leader for 2 trimesters as well. So in Monash College provides students to have the opportunity to train their leaderships and communication skills. They provide student leader program that everyone can join. And during the program, I found it's more like they treat you as a member of the staff team, because they give you the same opportunity to help with new students, like the orientation week or the enrollment. And during the activities, you more act like a staff than a student. So even if you're a student, maybe you have experience or pre-experience what's gonna happen in the future, because these experience is very vital for future finding a job or communicate with other people, even on business or administration. It's not very useful. So it's pretty, I could hardly imagine that a teacher could treat a student as a staff member as well. So in China or even in other Asian countries, it's very, very impossible, because students and teachers looks like teachers in a higher level and students is basic level.
Yeah. Okay.
So Italy about 1.5 years, and Canada also about 1.5 years as well.
What were you going to do?
I went to Canada to work in Vancouver at the University of British Columbia, and Italy, I went there to learn Italian. In Canada, it's half English, half French, and the culture is quite similar to here, but in Italy, the culture is quite different. Yeah, it's very different. The language obviously is different, but the culture is more relaxed. People think more about living life and less about working. Yeah, they focus too much on working. But in Italy, they have a nice balance.
Yeah.
The working, but also enjoying life as well. Yeah, I like Italian culture. For example, like I said, it's relaxed. They focus on family relationships and things like that. I like the old parts of the culture as well. In Australia, everything is new, all the buildings anyway. We have old cultures, but yeah, no old buildings, not more than 200 years old. But in Italy, yeah, there's a lot of lots of old culture, art, music, yeah. I don't think so. Maybe. No. I expected things to be different when I was in Italy. It was like I lived there for 100 years. As soon as I started walking the streets, people were, "Where's the hospital? Where's this?" So it was like I was one of them. But I think the most culture shock is when I went to America. It's just that I don't know. Like sometimes it seemed dangerous in some places.
Yeah.
Like in Philadelphia, I was there with my family, and I went to a McDonald's, and there were people that looked like they were going to kill you. So yeah, that was a sort of a culture shock. I never felt that anywhere in the world except in Philadelphia. Maybe so, but I also saw a guy with tattoos of teardrops on his face, and my son said, "Dad, why has he got?" I said, "Shh, don't say anything." So yeah, it was like the movies, yes. Yeah, that's when basically you have an idea that whole culture is like one idea, one example matches the whole culture. So every German person loves drinking beer or whatever. Oh yeah, when I was in Canada, the stereotype was English speakers are cold. You know, cold people, they're not sort of friendly.
Yeah.
And but that wasn't true. But also the French were crazy, and that wasn't true either because I had friends from both. So. But yeah, there were stereotypes like that. Yeah, maybe, to be honest, like teaching at Monash College now for, like I met Chinese people before, but not as many as I'm meeting now.
Yeah.
And yeah, what I notice is that in general, they're very polite. I don't get angry, but the ones I met were really nice. But then sometimes I noticed some tourists, they were sort of like Americans, you know, too loud and, you know, but teaching at Monash College, you can see it's the opposite. They're more quiet. Yeah, so I started thinking maybe the Chinese are like the Americans of Asia, you know, but no, it's not true. So maybe that was a stereotype, but I don't think so. I don't think so though. It's kind of. But the people who lived near me, the Chinese families, they were so nice. Okay, all right. I'll give you one. This is in Japan. I was looking for this tiny tourist attraction in Nagasaki, and I asked this old man, "Do you know where Nyokudo is?" And and he was raking, and he just threw his rake down. He said, "Follow me."
Yeah.
And so I asked him in Japanese, but he spoke English well. So, and 2.5 kilometers, he walked upstairs, downstairs, you know, through the streets. He took myself and the family to the place. And it took like half an hour to walk there. Then he bowed and he said, I said, thank you. And
That's nice.
that happened so many times. Yeah. But 2.5 kilometers, that was a memorable experience. Yeah. That was really good. nobody here would do that. It would be very rare. But in Japan, that happened like at least 5 times. Things like that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.